Okay, welcome back to Camp Content, the show where we pitch the tents and light the bonfire on all things marketing, sales, and content creation. We've got an adventurer today. She's a trailblazer in the marketing wilderness and a beacon. I love these camping analogies for those navigating the ever-changing, expanding globe of talent and creativity. So what does all that mean? Cara Bedford is the CEO and founder of Infinite Marketing. She's not just at the forefront, but she's redefining the very landscape of marketing. For over a decade, Cara's been charting the course in executive marketing roles with tech, excelling in the assembly of leadership and scalable marketing teams that don't just reach for the stars, they live among them. Boom. With a command center that's driven exceptional campaigns for businesses of all size, from sprightly startups to the titans of Fortune 500, her strategic acumen is nothing short of revolutionary. This is good stuff, Cara. I hope you can live up to this. This is great. And if you're impressed by numbers, Cara's career is a constellation of them. Picture this: leading over 300 professionals, launching Disruption magazine Canada into a brand with a readership that's a small city in size, and achieving triple the outputs while slicing traditional marketing costs by more than half. It's no wonder she's been a NASA speaker, and her achievements are truly out of this world. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Cara Bedford. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good.
That was a great intro. Like, can I pay you for that later? That was awesome. Thank you for that.
No problem. No problem. I enjoyed putting all that together and learning more about you. So to be able to, show up properly for today.
Awesome. So what are we talking about, Molly? I'm here. What should we chat about?
Well, let's get right into it. So I'm super curious. So you've been doing this like global staffing and growing companies for over 10 years. So let's kind of get into what were you doing before that? Like, what was that pivot, that transition like?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I had the dream job. I was in corporate, corner office. Had a great resume and all the accolades that you wanted. I worked in tech, so I was part of a bunch of M&As that ended up happening after the other, and I got this kind of weird notoriety of being adopted into many marketing teams. And when I say adopted, I mean I'm not sure if they all wanted me. And so I would land in these marketing teams and find out that they were working with these agencies and spending all this money on these agencies. And I really started to learn about the agency model and find out that it was quite flawed. I was never really happy with, the outputs we got. No one really felt like they were part of our team. It was stretched out, hidden costs. They were resource thin. So a lot of the time we were resource thin, but then you're relying on them and then they're resource thin. And so the transparency there around really having this plug and play, extension of your team never really came to fruition in the entirety of my career. And so for me, I started to look at a different way to do this. And it was when I was pointed in the direction of looking at global talent that my entire world changed. And I knew I would never work the same way again. And so it's been, just about a decade now that we've been building scalable marketing teams for companies across North America and really figuring out how we can harness the world's top genius and top talent. And so really working with that, top 1% of talent in the world in either a fractional model or a scalable model.
I love that because, and I talk about this a lot, especially, I guess technically we're an agency, but I don't really think of us as that, we're more of a production house. But I think about this a lot because I feel like so many of these agency deals are just overinflated. It's like they're excited to say no. It's like they can't wait to say no to the client because if they say no, then they can say, but we can do it for X amount of dollars. We can add X amount of hours, right? The bloated timelines, like you said. It's like when I was a kid, Sears used to have like a repair shop. Like you could take your car to Sears to get worked on. And those mechanics were paid on commission. And I remember it was like a big deal. I don't know why these are the things that stuck out when I was like 7, but it was, and they killed that because it's like, of course the mechanics are going to inflate your repairs if they're getting paid on commission. And I feel like so many agencies are the same way. And I've witnessed it personally when we're a vendor working with a client and they're working with an agency, and we're literally working circles around them, responding to them, saying yes, providing solutions, and the agency is just saying no, 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 making things difficult, almost as if by saying no and making things difficult, it makes us look bad. Like there's this weird competitive thing between vendors and agencies. It's really like a whole thing. And I think it's all to protect these like super inflated budgets, because I too have wondered, what are they getting for $25,000 a month exactly?
Yeah. Or, you know, and there are times that the work does need to be like that, and it does need to be high because you're building global brands and you're building things that take a lot of manpower and brain power, and it just takes a lot of resourcing. But at the same point, there's also, these smaller or mid-sized businesses that just need a poster or just need this. And while they need to have strategy and brand guidelines, these are very important. I know I don't like random acts of marketing. I'll come in a lot of the time and say, this is really random. There's no, overview of the strategy. But in parallel, why don't we build you the strategy and keep the lights on? And I think that's what makes Infinite really different, is we look at it from both angles. And, a lot of agencies are known for one or the other. They're either known for their strategy or they're known for their execution. And at the end of the day, what Infinite really does is marry the two. And it's based on how we've really built this success criteria model throughout our resourcing and staffing, around how it can actually have both, even as something as little as like, I need a banner on LinkedIn, So really looking at that and figuring out how we build upon what you already have, but enhance it as well.
I agree. So how did you get started with like the like sourcing global talent? Because it's gotten a lot easier, right? Every year it's easier and easier. But 10 years ago, you were an outlier. You and Tim Ferriss were probably the only people really. I mean, that's not entirely true. But from a large corporations and bigger businesses, of course, have employees all over the world. But smaller companies, like this is a completely foreign, pardon the pun, concept to them.
Well, and I think it's also still really foreign. Like we'll go in and we'll, go to an RFP with a company, and they phone me and they're like, I think you answered the RFP wrong. And I'll be like, why? And they're like, because of the price. Like there's no way that you're that different in your pricing and your timelines. We answered an RFP last week, and I looked at the amount of work that they were saying would take a year. And I wrote them back and I said, here's my new timeline. I'll do this in 6 months. like I can't, this is not going to take a year. There's no way this is going to take a year. Right. Like my team would be bored, and I would feel bad.
Want to. Right. Exactly.
I would feel bad. Ethically, I would actually feel bad by saying, sure, let me draw this out for a year and I'm not really doing any work. So, there's those types of conversations that I think the education of marketing is actually needing to take place. So I don't think it's just how we do it, like global talent versus traditional talent versus employees versus consultants versus whatever. I think what's happened is marketers, and not by any design, I think marketers made their own marketing penetration and their marketing plans messy. I think we've literally messed our own market up because it's so convoluted right now. And it's really hard to navigate. It's hard to find the quality talent. It's hard to find, even on those platforms, right? It's hard to go and find, you post a job and 4,000 resumes come at you in about 30 seconds, right? And how do you know who's the most qualified? And I think that's the mystery that Infinite's taking away, is we're saying, hey, let us do that. Let us hold your hand through this journey. Let us, work with the top 1% of talent in the world. And really look at that and bring that through and bring it in an affordable way. And, we've skilled mapped. We've got over 600 contractors right now working for us. It's growing every day. And like I said, we work with Fortune 500s all the way down to a mom and pop shop. And so our entire ethos, I think, is around building an ecosystem of like-minded individuals who truly just want to do good work for good people who want to do great things. And at the end of the day, when you feel that outcome is going to speak for itself.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
I can kind of flip that same question you had to her to you, Molly. I mean, looking at us, I'm not saying we're Fortune 500, but I wouldn't call us mom and pop, so we're kind of somewhere in there. But we're global, right? I'm the only one in the States, so I can kind of push that question back your way and how you took the approach of building it that way.
Well, I mean, it's pretty embarrassing to admit, but I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and he was just talking about this global market, and I was like, that makes sense to me. And there's a platform called onlinejobs.ph, and so this is 4 or 5 years ago now. Company's 5 years old, so. But Online Jobs actually produced like 20 videos, which, in hindsight, I really appreciate about how to like best use it. And one of the best things they said was like provide a living wage, right? Which is very important to me coming from DC and like poverty and just like the, inequity that exists in the world. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be on Upwork like a scavenger. Like I was like, that can't be it. And so I love the idea of like providing stability and full-time income and life-changing opportunities for people, but while also being able to stay in, a budget that can work as a company our size to actually make money without having to charge people $25,000 a month and everything else. Because I think a lot of these agencies, and I'd be really interesting, Cara, to know what you think. I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm like, well, why are these agencies having problems like delivering, or why are they so quick to say no? And my best guess is that they're probably understaffed or having a lot of churn within the company. And so maybe they started off with like 10, award-winning badass people, but now a whole bunch of them have left and like they keep replacing positions. And so maybe that's why some of that quality of work has gone down. I don't know if that's an accurate observation. You would probably know more than I do. But
I think, again, with the market becoming saturated, they've had to figure out a different way. And I think they've made some poor choices. Their different way was, let's bring on more junior people to do the same work and charge the same thing. And I'm not saying this is for all of them, but I'm saying there's been a big majority of them. But they're also constricted by their local geography. And so, in companies like ours that are looking global, we don't put an ad in the paper and say, hey, I'm looking for a content writer. Like that doesn't even, that's just, no, that doesn't even exist in my brain. My brain is like, oh, we need to scale up the team because we've taken on more work. Okay, let's build a strategic strategy around resourcing and figure out where I'm going to go get it based on all of the partnerships that I have in the global talent model. And so now we're not just posting a job and having it come back to us. Like we're physically going out, we're looking through people, we're building their skills as well. Everyone at Infinite has skill building and skill mapping, and they're getting better. And we start to get this really deep-setted industry expertise, right? Like when you're the best at X, you become the best at like, it's not just digital, you're like the best at backlinking, right? Like it starts to get really skill defined. Mm-hmm. And I think what has happened in the traditional agency model is truly they just had a bunch of generalists. And these generalists were really kind of okay at everything. And that was okay back in the day when there wasn't as much education, you couldn't find things. I mean, with AI, it's just blowing up everything else. And that's a whole nother topic we can talk about. But, this idea around really specialized marketing and the way that technology has come into marketing, I really, truly believe that you have to be a tech company that does marketing, not a marketing company that adopts tech. And I think that's a huge difference in a lot of those traditional agencies. They just have not become lean.
Man, that's pretty poignant. I like that. What I like about the global market too is, there's a lot of really smart people in the world, who deserve opportunities. And if they can increase their skill set and become more marketable themselves and create security for themselves, that's a win-win. So talking about AI, right? I think about this stuff a lot too, like Loom, how they just came out with this like AI update and stuff. And, I got to say, running a global team, that is amazing. I totally paid the $4 more a month for that, because think about it. Anybody on my team now, I mean, we all communicate very well with one another, but in a pinch, if they didn't totally understand what I was saying, they could throw that text into a translation versus me just sending a video, right? So I think there's a lot of AI is making things a lot more accessible for a lot of people. People who don't speak English as a first language can lean more on AI to like correct things for them, right? Like to say, hey, make sure this makes sense, But it's kind of interesting, like the flip side of like, whose job is that taking? Maybe those jobs should be taken. I don't know, right? Like, what's your take on kind of what's happening in the AI world in your space?
Yeah, so I'm really proud that Infinite has had an AI policy since inception. So, for example, we have a client comes to us and they ask us, how do you use AI? I mean, I've got a 20-point page deck telling you exactly how we use it, and it continuously changes and morphs with what's coming down. I mean, the ChatGPT agents that just came out last week, and we're seeing those roll out and how that works. And so, we were lucky that we could build the business with a lot of those automations and AI and ML and RPA, because it's not just AI. People kind of bulk it all together, but really we're talking about robotic process automation. We're talking about machine learning. We're talking about all of these other pieces that all scale up into how do we automate? I mean, the real goal is like, how do we automate and make things more effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really seeing a big change in how we do a few places. So one is market research. Market research, the idea that we can quickly scale the internet really quick, building our own prompts, and really starting to look through that. The other piece is, where AI stops and where it starts. There are, for larger companies, they have their own internal AI policies, and we have to look at those and how are what we are doing either inhibiting or prohibiting us from working together. And so I think I'm an abundance mindset person. I'm an exponential mindset person. So I'm all for the technology. I think it's going to be an amazing tool to have in our arsenal and on our toolbox. But there's still a point where we do need the creative talent to go in and edit and, put the flair in and understand really what we're trying to do. Because what I'm starting to see, and I've started to see this in the last year, is things are starting to look and sound the same. And so when the market is zigging, how are you going to zag? And so if everyone is using this tool like ChatGPT to write all your blogs, well, they're all going to look and sound exactly the same.
With
So
entirely too many adjectives.
with a lot of flair. So it's learning how to use the tool. I think we're in an education piece. I think we're in a democratization of the tool right now. I love listening to our clients have these challenges in their boardrooms and them asking if they could have our 20-page AI policy deck as a place to start. But I truly believe that we're going to see a lot of changes in the next year with this. We're going to see a lot of changes in the next month with this. And it's something that we need to be on.
I agree.
And-
So how long have you had an AI policy deck? Since you started the company?
Yeah, so I had an AI policy deck 18 months ago was the first time we shared it with clients. It was like, okay, here you go. This is what it is to work with us. This is where we use AI. And then where do we charge less because we are using AI, or where does it become we charge the same because the quality and the output's still the same? And so you have to start to think through value versus time, or time versus value as a company. And those conversations are all things that with the way that even this global talent market is, that you need to assess in your own business and how you're going to be doing that. So, we're pretty transparent with that and how we run our business. But I would say traditional agencies haven't even started this conversation. We're years ahead, right? And so abundance mindset, go and look at what AI is going to do for marketing. Start to learn and listen, start to think about how you can adopt that into your own practices. Figure out where you can automate. look at the tools. Just go look. Spend an afternoon. It'll be well
Yeah,
worth
it'll
your
make your
time.
it'll make your
Yeah.
brain hurt, but in a really good way. Like
Yeah.
setting up automations, you have to like work in reverse, and it takes some real thought, but it's good for your brain as an entrepreneur to like stress yourself out a little and come up with these things. But that's fascinating. I really love what you said about charging less for the things you're using AI for, and then how can you enhance? Because man, that's quotable for sure, because it's so important. It's like in our business, transcriptions, obviously, game changer. They went from taking 4 days to taking 4 minutes, right? With like endless amounts of data. And for a podcast, that's totally fine, right? Keyword focus, lose a lot of the adjectives. It's perfect for a podcast. And that used to be a big sticking point in our production for our clients. So it's like we've sped that up, but now we can like provide more video clips. Like we can redirect that time and something else to provide more value for our clients. And I think a lot of the messaging on the internet is like, use AI and make money in your sleep. And it's like, well, hold on, right? Like AI shouldn't I think it can increase your profit margins in a way, but I don't think it should be at your client's expense, right? So I really like what you said about like, okay, if it's costing less here, how can we provide more value? Because, these tools can really enhance things, but they can't just be leaned on to replace like the person. So I think there's a lot of that going around, right? You know what I mean? So
I think there's always going to be the villains and the heroes in these stories. And, unfortunately, with the world that we're in, we're hearing a lot of the villains. So I think right now, look for the heroes, look for the ones that are really using this to change the world. And I'm not being facetious. I'm serious about look at the people and the companies that are using this tool to change and impact the world in a positive way. And I think that's where you want to start to think about how your adoption can be. Like for me, I'm a mom. I'm busy. I've got a company. I've got little ones. Like I have a finite of time. And so for me, anything that can make me more effective from a time perspective is going to be something that I use. And so this gives me time to go and not work, 40, 60, 80 hours a week. I don't do that. I've never done that since the inception of this business. I go and volunteer on Pancake Day. That's important to me.
yeah.
And so, like that is where I start to see tools like this play a really big personal gain piece for yourself. But at the end of the day, you got to be transparent. Like we literally stamp it. We'll say, this was run through ChatGPT for sentence structure and grammar. This was ran through Bard for looking at the citations. I think what we need to look at in this, again, very noisy world is finding trust. Trust is the currency, and who can you trust, and how do you build those relationships? And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's going to get you out of this fear mongering is building communities with people that you trust and can be transparent around what they're doing.
Yeah.
You've
I kind
mentioned
of want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Molly.
Go ahead, Matt. No, you had a question.
No, I just kind of wanted to circle way far back here, back to the whole global thing and building teams that way, because something you've been an advocate for is remote and hybrid work, and how that increases productivity, creativity, and obviously if you're global, you kind of have to be remote and hybrid. So kind of talk about that a little bit, and then I'm curious to hear what you say so we can follow up with kind of how we see it from our perspective, obviously being fully remote and occasionally hybrid if we have to go do an event on site or anything. Yeah.
So I think for me, we saw this model work through COVID. Oh, the dreaded C word. I'm so sorry. But everybody saw this model work. We were told that it was going to work, and we made it work, and we made it work real fast. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, no, come back to the office a little bit, but also you can work remote, and it's a choice. Okay, cool. And then it was mandated. No, you're coming back into the office 3 days a week. In 2 days, you can work remote. And now it's like 1 day remote, 4 days a week. Like it's just you're starting to see the companies start to mandate this, come back to work, and not just start. We've been seeing this the last year. And I see why. Cities are hurting, downtowns are hurting, cores are hurting, buildings are hurting, our infrastructure is hurting, our systems are hurting because we were used to people being out doing things. I 100% hear and respect that. What if we thought about it in a different way? What if we thought about, hey, this way that we work remote is actually empowering a whole new workforce. First off, women that were never able to work because they had to do childcare and could not give 30 to 40 hours a week, now all of a sudden can work. Oh, people who are semi-retired and can only give 5 hours a week because they just want something for their brain, but they have all this brain share and knowledge that they can pass on to the next generation, they can work. So why are we going back in a non inclusive model of work?
Exactly.
For the point of buildings and cities and taxes. I don't understand that. Why are we not thinking about cities and buildings and taxes in a different way? And so just like we thought about, hey, let's get on Zooms and Teams and all of this to keep our businesses running, where is that gritty human thinking gone? Because that's what made, as horrible as COVID was, and I can say this, I lost a parent through COVID. As horrible as COVID was, what I saw was exponential thinking. What I saw was disruption thinking. What I saw was, hey, we can't do things in the same way, and let's look at the status quo. We have this time to reinvent ourselves. What I'm really sad witnessing right now is, let's just go back to the way things were. And this is where you're now seeing, this was the stat that came out last year, was 1 in 4 executive women are thinking about leaving the workforce. I was one of them, right? I could not work in the way that I needed to work in that corporate job anymore. I just could not do it. I could not think about working 80 hours a week, taking care of the home, taking care of my kid, like figuring that out, schooling him, all of it. Like everyone was burnt out. And so now you have a burnt out population and you're saying, oh, come back to the office. Let's put the commute back in.
Let's get the band back together. Yeah. Like, no.
And you're wondering why there's resistance. You're wondering why platforms like Upwork grow 15% a quarter in people using the platform for work and talent. You're wondering why people are leaving the workforce. You're wondering why women are leaving the workforce. And I just, Matt, I can't, I just posed the question back, is like, why are we not thinking why? Why are we not uncovering the why and thinking about how do we do this differently?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a friend that, everything works out of DC. So she, she's been working remote since everything went down. And, so what they do is they spend their summers in DC, and she goes in and out of the office, a couple times a week, does the hybrid thing. And her boyfriend works remote from his company up in Boston. And then, they spend the summers up in Boston. And then the winters down in DC. So all winter, she's in and out of the office. He's fully remote. Then they go back up there in the summer. They just do this whole thing. And, she gets a call a couple weeks ago being like, hey, her boss out of the company, new one coming in, new one goes, hey, you have to be back by this date, full time, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, or you're fired. So it's just like, whoa, like, so it's just isn't interesting to me how some people can kind of flip that switch, because it's a tough adjustment when you're used to it for a while now. And then just even like from my perspective, being remote, I feel like I get more done now because I don't feel like that whole, like, I don't open my laptop as soon as I walk in the office. I don't shut it as soon as I leave. Now I'm just kind of like, I see myself working all day because I kind of want to and can, and it's easier.
That's the difference, though. That's the difference. So want to, and working in your joy. So let's talk about the autonomous worker for a minute. So in this new future of work, it's about autonomy. It's about control and choice. It's about, and I'm going to plug myself, it's about infinite possibilities, right? It's about the idea that it's limitless and you can learn from anyone and diversify your skill set from around the world. And you get to learn about the way that different cultures and different people and different mindsets and backgrounds and education are doing things. And at the end of the day, you become a better human being and professional. So autonomy, the autonomous worker. What's the underlying value that we look for in that autonomy? And some people say happiness. I want happiness at work. And I have a psych background, so that word is really loaded for me. So I turned it around and I said, what about joy? When I'm working on projects, I feel this innate joy of when I can land a brand positioning statement, or when I see a brand guide deck and it's all done and I'm about to present it to the client. Like, I'm high, right? It's that joy of creative. And that's my joy space. Whereas in other people on my team's joy space is looking at an analytical deck and dashboard and pulling out all the figures and doing an ABM audit. Whereas in, other people on my team, their joy is actually around going into Adobe Suite and figuring out exactly what colors to the 10th of the hex percentage is going to be perfect. And that's not my joy. And the other one scenario is not my joy, right? But it doesn't mean we all can't coexist together and really build out that like autonomous worker joy skill set together. And this is where freelancing consulting has an issue. So here's the issue. And this is where people are saying we need to go back to work. They need to go back to work to be in an office because they feel lonely, because we're alone. We've never been alone more than any time other in the world. That is a legit quote. The world is moving faster than it ever has before and slower than it ever has again. That's Amber Mack. So at the end of the day, while we learned about this new technology and remote and working and efficiencies and all of this, we also were never more alone. So instead of saying, hey, let's all get back together in the office to make teams, what we actually need to do is say, hey, I want to keep you in your autonomous. I want to keep you as an autonomous worker. You can have the control. You can find the joy. You can do all those things. But I'm going to build you that ecosystem and support system and mental health system and whatever else system we need to build you for support here in this world, on an online world, on an online platform. So you don't feel that way. And we're going to figure that out psychologically to say, what is it that you need to make sure that you don't feel lonely and that you feel like Matt just said, where I'm like, I want to work on this stuff. I want to be in this lane. And I really think we haven't asked ourselves as a society what I want enough. You're not conditioned to. You're conditioned to get gold stars, right? You're conditioned to have the right answer. You're conditioned to go into an interview and prove yourself to them, to the company. But what happens when you start to think for yourself and you start to say, hey, what actually brings me joy? Hey, what do I want? And really start to plan that out for yourself and make yourself your own plan that you want to work in or towards, and find companies or people that you can team and collaborate with that gets you to that joy spot. Or if you like the word happiness, I'm not taking that away from you. So, how do we do that? And that takes thinking time, and that takes really knowing yourself and having awareness for yourself. And that's a luxury, and not everyone can do that.
It's absolutely, it's a luxury and a bit of a privilege in some sense, really, because a lot of people aren't in a position to really think about what they want, right? They're just trying to survive through every day. So it's a whole other thing. But I couldn't agree more with that statement. I talk a lot about this as well. Like, what do you really want from your life? Like, what does it actually look like? What time do you wake up? Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you lay in bed? Do you work out for, like, what do you actually want on a super granular level, and then reverse engineer it? Because I don't think many people, especially women, have ever even thought about, what do you want? Like, no, forget your kids, forget all the things. Just like, what do you want? Like, oh, I can't think about that. Well, why not? Right. So I really appreciate that. I think I would like to think that we've built a an environment of autonomy at Heartcast Media, but I definitely didn't do it with as much intention and thought as you just described. I've just had a lot of really shitty bosses in my life, and I was like, I don't want to be that person. And so, Matt is a hockey coach for girls, like teenage girls, and travels a lot. And, I'm totally cool with him doing that. And we work around his schedule, and I cover sessions for him sometimes, but it's not uncommon on a Saturday for him to be like, me to message him on Slack, with no response required, and I usually say, even though I don't need to at this point, hey, you don't need to respond. I'm just working. And he'll be like, I'm just sitting here with a drink working too. I mean, that's happened to us countless times because it's like he has the freedom to do what he's enjoying in his day. And so it's not a big deal on a Saturday if he's got nothing else to do. Why wouldn't you jump on the computer and knock this stuff out, right? We like our clients. We want to see them win. We enjoy the work that we do. And so, I definitely didn't put as much intention behind it, but that was the goal. And I feel like everybody in the company has that.
But that's not normal.
Yeah.
That's the thing, Molly, that's not normal. So to me, I'm like, okay, we need to normalize this. And this is why I do these podcasts. I don't do them to get a bunch of clients or to whatever, make a lot of money. That's not what I'm in this for. I'm truly in this to spread some awareness around individuals and individual workers and truly thinking about the way we work. There's a saying that I've been noodling in my head for the last year, and it's like, it's not personal, it's work. How many times have you heard that, right? It's not personal, it's business. And it is personal.
It is. Everything is personal.
Because it's life. It's
relationships.
But it's just life. Literally, it's a choice. Sure, we're going to subcategorize this as work. But it's a choice. This is a choice of how I choose to spend my time. And I choose to spend it with who. And choose to build those relationships. And choose where I'm showing up and where I'm not. And, that's personal. So, I really want us to, as a society, come out of this COVID haze, again, the dreaded C word, thinking about things differently. Because if we don't, then what we just went through was all for naught.
I agree. And, we were a DC-based company. I lived in DC proper for 20 years, and I rode a bike for 7 years, and I spent a lot of time thinking about urban planning and all of that. And why do they want us all back? Why is WeWork about to cripple the economy in more ways than one, right? Like, there's so many answers. It boils down to deals with the mayor and these huge construction companies and all these giant buildings that went in. Cities are for cars, not for people. They're not friendly. I mean, when I lived in DC, I lived 3 miles from my office, and it would take a $50 Uber ride at rush hour. $50 to go 3 miles. If cities were built more for pedestrians and for people that live there and weren't necessarily pandering towards these corporations and businesses, then cities would become livable again. And then I think it would be easier. But people can't even tackle that because there's too much money invested in those cities to become work hubs. And it's like the cat's already out of the bag. They can't even figure out how to put it back in, For 10 years in DC, we used to call it Crane City because you look in the skyline and we have height restrictions because of the Washington Monument and all that. But you would see 20 cranes. Mm-hmm. Not building houses, Mm-hmm. And now all those buildings are empty. They've always been empty. They were empty before the Great Panini. That's what I call it. And they've been after since, they've been empty since. So, I don't want to take too much of your time, Cara, but we could talk all day because I was going to ask you because you definitely have talked about making the world a better place, and I can see that that's apparent in everything that you're doing and that you're talking about and the way that you lead in your company and how you're expressing yourself online. So I appreciate you taking time to hang out with us today and share this with us for sure.
Oh, thanks, Molly. I was actually really stoked to come on your podcast. I listened to a few of them before, and it was one of the ones I was really excited about, just not only because we're aligned in thinking, and I always appreciate when we can be aligned, but also I love discussion and adversary, so that doesn't matter either. So, but I love the fact that you've taken this model and made it work for yourself in your own life, and that's a testament as well in itself, right? And so, I guess my point of this is, yes, people are surviving. Yes, people are burnt out. Yes, people are tired. But I just, even 10 minutes, just ask yourself, take 10 minutes and ask yourself, what do you want? And if we all just took 10 minutes and asked ourselves that, the world could be a way kinder, happier, joyful place.
Amen. You might even end up in
Perfect.
Costa Rica.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what
Maybe.
happened to me. I started thinking about what I really wanted, and I was like, well, it ain't this. Let me tell you that. And here I am.
Hey, yeah,
You know,
why not? I like snow too much, unfortunately.
I
I'm a
like
snow
snow too, but
person.
from inside the lodge with a warm drink in my hand. You know what I mean?
No.
On vacation. That's
Yeah.
about it, But
We're hikers and skiers, unfortunately, over in this house. So
hey, man.
I've got to run to another meeting.
Yes. Well, real quick before you go, tell us where people can find you if they want to connect with you and get hip.
So to connect with me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So Cara Bedford, CaraBedford. So feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. But also you can find us at infinitemarketing.ca.
Amazing. Cara, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for tuning into Camp Content. I think this was a good one. They're all pretty good, but this is definitely up there. If you found it valuable, definitely connect with Cara on LinkedIn, connect with us, leave us a comment, whatever. I hope you have a great day. Until next time, be excellent to each other. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Camp Content. This is Molly.
And this is Matt.
And we are Heartcast Media, aka Camp Content, and we appreciate all of your support. If you found this content valuable, please comment on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you find us, and we will make sure to comment back.
And be sure to go on and subscribe and like on your favorite platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Leave us that subscription, leave us that good review.
We'll love you forever. So until next time, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.